Hello everybody. Today I wanted to answer the question, should you get a ukulele or a Loog guitar if you're buying an instrument for a young person? I searched this on YouTube. I didn't see anything directly addressing that. Full disclaimer, I do not own any Loog products and I have never used any Loog products, so I don't have firsthand experience, but based on what they're showing on their website, I have some pretty strong opinions that mixed in with the instruments that I do own and that I do have experience with. Loog, if you see this and you want to send me some stuff, I will absolutely give it a fair shake, but based on what I'm seeing from your website, I've got some concerns about the Loog company. There's a reason I haven't bought anything from them, and that's what I want to go over here. There's going to be a lot of information here. I will put timestamps down below because I want to be very clear and very thorough with my reasoning and not just say you should or you shouldn't because I say so. Before we get too into this, I want to go over some of what I'm going to be talking about because I think Loog is targeting people without a lot of experience or knowledge of musical instruments. So that's kind of who I'm aiming for in this video. So I want to show you exactly what I'm talking about as we go through this video. If you already know a lot about instruments and accessories, you can skip this part. This is what's commonly called a classical style guitar. It's full size, it has nylon strings, 6 of them. It can be played electrically through an amp or acoustically without one. This is an acoustic electric guitar with a standard size neck and standard strings. The body shape is a little bit weird, but the strings in the neck are identical to what you would find on a normal acoustic guitar. I have taped off the first 3 strings so that I can demonstrate how certain things on a Loog would work compared to some of the other things. So this is my Loog stand-in because I don't own a Loog. These are a couple different types of ukulele. This is a soprano size. This is a different style body than is common. This is a baritone size. It is much larger, and this is pretty much the biggest normal size of ukulele that you can easily find. This is what I would call, and this company calls, a guitar-lele. Some people call it a guitar ukulele or a ukulele guitar. This is identical to what a lot of companies will release as their children's guitar. It's identical in size and in dimensions, but not necessarily in quality. And I'll talk about that more later. This is a capo. It is designed to clamp all the strings of a guitar or any other stringed instruments at the same time. I don't really want to get into why that's used, but it's going to come into play in the demonstrations. So that's what this is. So let's get into it. So we've got the Loog website here. And I want to start off by looking at this bit from their website. So under Why Loog, we've got some general information about learning instruments. It talks a little bit about other cheap guitars. It says most guitars for kids are simply cheap, scaled-down replicas of a standard guitar. I agree with that. I think that most children's guitars are bad products. That's what I've had in my experience. Because they have 6 strings anyway, the neck is still too wide for a child to play comfortably. That I have also found to be true. Plus, cheap guitars tend to be cheaply made. This is the biggest issue, I think, is that if you use these things as would make sense logically for the instrument, they're not built for that. They're built for it to be a toy. And when you try to use them for what would be logical, they break. That's been my experience. So I pretty much agree with this section. My problem comes with this next section. So what about ukuleles? Ukuleles are great if what you want is a ukulele. The problem is that many people end up buying a ukulele because what they want is a small, portable, easy to play guitar. And if that's what you want, we think a Loog is better suited for you. So this is where I have an issue. I'm going to come back to that. You see, a ukulele is an entirely different instrument. It has its own strings, its own tuning, and its own sound. Now that is not completely false, but it is also not completely true. and it's conveniently worded to make them look better. Loog guitars are really just 3-string guitars. They use regular guitar strings, they tune like a guitar, they play like a guitar, and they sound like a guitar. So let's break this down. It says Loog guitars are really just 3-string guitars. Ukuleles are really just 4-string guitars. So what do I mean by that? If I take this guitar and I play this chord shape, which only uses the bottom 3 strings, I can take that same chord shape and play it on a ukulele, and I get a chord. Now on a baritone ukulele, that's going to be the same chord because the baritone ukulele is tuned to be the bottom 4 strings of a guitar. Same tuning. Now what they appear to be trying to separate themselves from are soprano ukuleles and other smaller ukuleles. So let's talk about that. If I take this soprano ukulele and I play that same shape, it still plays a chord, but it's a different chord. The tuning of the ukulele has the same relationship between the strings as a guitar. It's just a higher pitch. And this is where my capo is going to come in. So ukulele is tuned like a guitar with the capo on the 5th fret, which basically just means the strings are this much shorter. So now if I take that same shape and I play it here with a capo on the 5th fret, compared to my soprano ukulele, now we're playing the same chord. So when they say that ukulele has its own tuning, that's not incorrect, but it's not that it's tuned in a different way than the guitar. It's just that each string is tuned to a different pitch, but the relationship between those strings are still all the same. So chord shapes and patterns and scales that you learn on a ukulele will transfer over to a guitar. It's not going to sound exactly the same, but that's only a problem if you're trying to play along with a specific video or recording, or if you're trying to play with someone else. Now, if you're trying to play with someone else, you can solve that problem by giving the other person a capo. And then they can just capo and play everything the same way, just up 5 frets, and now it will match the ukulele. Now, that won't solve the problem of playing with a recording, but oftentimes when beginners are learning songs, the chords that they're using are not always going to be the same as the recordings that they want to play along with anyway. So is it still a problem? Yes, but not that much more of a problem than they would already have. So to recap what they're saying in here, they say the ukulele is an entirely different instrument. I would disagree with that. It is an altered instrument, but it is not entirely different. There are a lot of things that transfer over. There are a lot of skills that are the same. It's different, but it's not entirely different. They're quite similar. They say that it has its own strings. Yes, they do have their own strings, but that is irrelevant. Because if you're buying a separate guitar for your child that wants to play guitar, you're still going to buy strings for that guitar. So what does it matter if the strings that you buy are different? That might be a problem if somebody else that the child knows also plays guitar and they have a ton of extra strings and you were just going to bum strings off of them. But that should not be what make or breaks your purchase decision, because strings that aren't bought from Loog are not that expensive. They say it has its own tuning. Again, most of them, it's the same tuning, just starting on a higher pitch. And when we're talking about the baritone, it's the same tuning as a guitar. Then it says it has its own sound. Now this is not inaccurate, but a Loog guitar would also have its own sound. A 3-string guitar is not going to sound like a 6-string guitar. A guitar that has a short scale is not going to sound like a full-scale guitar. So this is not false, but it's not a valid reason to discount the ukulele. Let's do a little demonstration. Here's a chord progression on either my classical guitar or my baritone ukulele. Now here's the same progression on the other one. Can you tell a major difference between those two sounds? That one was the baritone ukulele. The first one was the guitar. Now the only thing I did differently than I would normally on the guitar is I just avoided the top two strings. And I played here on the bottom strings. But the tone is very, very similar if you're talking about a baritone ukulele. Now, if we're talking about a soprano ukulele, then yes, it's going to sound brighter. But again, if I go with my capo, compare that to so this one is a lot brighter because it's a lot smaller, but there are several different sizes of ukuleles. I've got a bunch of them right here. But they're ignoring that fact because they're trying to sell you their product. Is a ukulele going to sound exactly like a guitar? No, but neither will a Loog guitar. Here's that first progression again on my classical guitar. And here's that progression again on my acoustic guitar with the 3 strings blocked. Again, it's much brighter even though the instrument is smaller because it's only using the 3 highest strings. Both a Loog guitar and a ukulele are going to sound different from a full-size guitar. Now they may be more referring to the tone of the instrument because the Loog does have steel strings like most acoustic guitars do, while ukuleles have nylon strings like most classical guitars do. But that's not what they say, so I don't know if that's what they mean. What they say is misleading. So if we move on, they say Loog guitars are really just 3-string guitars. I've already talked about ukuleles are just 4-string guitars. They use regular guitar strings. That's a problem because they're not the length of a regular guitar. Guitar strings work by being stretched to a certain tension, which will then tune that string to ring at the pitch that you want. And guitar strings are designed for this length. A Loog guitar is going to be closer to this size if it's the Loog Mini, or this size if it's the Loog Pro. This is much shorter than a full-length guitar. So strings that are designed to work at this length are not going to work as well at this length. They will still work somewhat, but they're going to be very loose, so they're not going to sound as good as they should because that's not what they're designed for. Whereas if you buy an instrument with its own strings that are designed for that instrument, it's going to sound much better. That's the main difference between something like a guitar-lele and a child-sized guitar. They're almost identical in dimensions, but a guitar-lele is going to come with the proper strings so that you can tune it properly to where it will play and feel correct, but it will sound different than a guitar. It's going to sound like a guitar capoed on the 5th fret. But a child-sized guitar, because they want you to think it's a guitar, is going to tell you to use regular guitar strings, which are not going to sound very good on it. Now you might be thinking to yourself, can I get a cheap child-sized guitar and the right strings for it and tune it the way that would make logical sense? Well, as I've said before, that doesn't really work. In my experience, the bridges on those cheaper instruments are not able to withstand the higher tension of tuning the strings higher, and they pull off. Now, I don't know if that's every single kind. That's just been my experience. So I would rather pay for an instrument that knows what it is and is telling you how to use it properly rather than try to buy something cheaper and try to hack it to use it the way that it should be used logically, but in a way that it's not designed to be used. So when they say that they use regular guitar strings, that's true, but they shouldn't. And that's going to make for a worse experience overall because you're using strings designed for a different instrument, not the instrument that you're buying. They say they tune like a guitar. I've already talked about the tuning. Moving on. Next, they say they play like a guitar. Let's come back to that one. The final one is that they sound like a guitar. We've already talked about that. We've compared the sounds. So let's go back to they play like a guitar. Let's look at some chords and compare the same chords between a full-size guitar, a Loog guitar, and a ukulele. 4 of the most common chords are G, D, E minor, and C. Let's start with those. A G chord on a full guitar uses 3 or 4 fingers. I like to play mine with 4, but it can be played with 3. So let's go with that. Now, because we don't have these 2 top strings on either a ukulele or a Loog guitar, that chord on a Loog guitar would just look like this. Just 1 finger. Now, for simplicity's sake, when I compare it to ukuleles, I'm going to use the baritone ukulele because it's tuned the same. But remember, even though it would sound different on a smaller ukulele, the capo can adjust for that. So the same shape on the baritone ukulele, once again, is just 1 finger. So the ukulele chord and the Loog chord are identical, both not the same thing as the guitar chord. Next, let's look at the D chord. A D chord only uses the bottom 4 strings, with your fingers only playing on the bottom 3. So on a Loog guitar, that's going to be very similar because our fingers can only play the bottom 3. And on a ukulele, again, we're playing the bottom 3, but we can play that 4th string now. So all 3 chord shapes are identical between the guitar and the Loog and a ukulele. Next up is the E minor chord. On a full-size guitar, you would have 2 fingers like this. Now those fingers are on the 2nd and the 3rd strings, which means you're not pressing anything on the bottom 3 strings. So that means on a Loog guitar, you would not press anything. And there's your E minor chord. On the baritone ukulele, we get the 3rd string here, no 2nd string, and our E minor chord goes just like that. So once again, both the Loog and the ukulele are different than the guitar. Now you might say, well, the Loog is easier because you don't have to play anything. I would say that's not training you very well. If one of your chords, one of your basic main go-to chords is nothing, then you're not developing a skill anytime you play that chord. This one's only 1 finger, but at least you understand that you have to move to that position. And when you transfer this over to a full guitar, all you're doing is adding 1 more finger. Whereas from a Loog, you've done nothing, and now you have to learn that chord again. And lastly, the C chord on a full guitar. We've got the 2nd string, 3rd string, and 5th string. So a Loog is not going to have the 2nd or 3rd. So you're only playing that 5th string, just like that. On a ukulele, you're still playing that 5th string, but you can get that 3rd string in now, just like that. So once again, both the Loog and the ukulele are different. But with the ukulele, you are closer to the full chord. In order to do the full chord, all you need to do is add this finger to the string that would be there. Whereas on the Loog, you're just using this 1 finger, which means your hand can be at lots of different positions. You can play that with lots of different fingers. So then when you have to go in and learn the full chord, it's going to be more work. Whereas if you learn the slightly more advanced chord on the ukulele, still not difficult, only 2 fingers, but it's a lot closer to the full chord, so that when you do make that transition, you're closer than if you had been on the Loog. Now there are lots of different chords, and I'm sure that you could pick out some that would favor the Loog over the ukulele. I picked 4 of the most basic chords. For the G chord, both the Loog and the ukulele were different from the guitar. but they were the same as each other. For the D chord, all three instruments were exactly the same. For the E minor chord, both the ukulele and the Loog were different from the guitar and different from each other, and the Loog required nothing to play, which makes it a very easy chord to play, but is not getting you any practice towards learning that chord. And for the C chord, again, both the Loog and the ukulele are different from the guitar, different from each other, but again, the ukulele is going to be closer to the full chord than a Loog. Now, if you don't believe me that those four chords are very, very common, I've got 3 different videos all about how many different songs you can play using just those 4 chords. There will be a card up somewhere if you want to go check those out. So then they say, so if you want to get a ukulele, you should definitely get one. They are actually fun to play along with Loog. That's very convenient because they also sell ukuleles. So they don't want to put you off of ukuleles overall. They just want you to think that ukuleles are a worse option for guitar when I do not believe that they are. Here's their ukulele, and they are charging $80 for it. And this is a soprano size, which is the smallest main size of ukulele. Then they say, but if what you really want is a small, fun guitar, we humbly propose that you consider a Loog. I've considered it, and it seems worse in almost every way than a ukulele. All right, so let's look at some of the actual Loog products here and see how their pricing compares to these other instruments. The Loog Mini, which I measured and is about the size of a concert-sized ukulele, retails for $90. Now, if we go to a website that's actually for musicians, so I'm on musiciansfriend.com, which is a website I use all the time. I've had a lot of good experience with them. This is the same company as Guitar Center. I have filtered some results to only include brands that I have used and that I own. Diamond Head, I think, is a very good economic option. The instruments seem pretty solid and a very good deal for the price. The instruments that I have the students use at my school are all Diamond Heads. I like them so much. I bought myself a soprano size Diamond Head. That was a couple years ago. Since then, I've also bought a tenor size Diamond Head. This isn't being featured in this video. This is just another size between the concert size and the baritone size. And my baritone size, which is being featured in this video, is a Diamond Head. So I have quite a bit of experience with Diamond Head. I don't have a lot of experience with Kala or Makala, which is part of the same brand family, but it's recommended by a lot of other music teachers. So I've recently bought this, which is a Makala, which is owned by the Kala company. I haven't had this for very long, but it seems pretty solid as well. Luna guitars are quite a bit more expensive and they are of a higher quality. My ukulele that I use at my school is a Luna. I liked it so much that I bought my own concert-sized Luna, and my guitar-lele that I've been using in this video is also a Luna. I like Luna a lot. So, filtering for only the brands that I have experience with, set low to high, and only new items. Diamond Head Soprano, less than $30. If we want to step it up, the Kala Soprano, which I think Kala is a bit more quality than the Diamond Head, $40. And if we keep going, I'm scrolling through all these fancy colored ones. The Luna Soprano, which Luna is, in my opinion, a much higher quality, $65. All of those are well beneath the $90 price tag of the Loog Mini. Now, if we keep going to the larger size, we've got a Diamond Head Concert for $75. Concert is the size. Our Kala Concert, also at $75. And if we move to the next page, we've got a Luna Concert for that same $90 price tag. So the Loog Mini was about the size of a concert ukulele, so a soprano ukulele would be smaller, but you can still get a concert size in any of those 3 brands for the same price or cheaper than the Loog Mini. The Loog Pro, which is just a little bit bigger, that's the only difference I could find in the specs, which I'll show here in a moment, retails for $130. So let's see what $130 gets us on an actual music website. The Loog Pro is about the size of the baritone ukulele. This Kala baritone ukulele is $100. This guitar lele from Luna, which is the one that I have, is $120. This Luna baritone comes in at that $130 price tag. So again, for the same price or less, you can get the comparable size from at least a couple of these brands. I might have missed the Diamond Head one. So just to prove I'm not lying, let's look at the specs here. This is for the Mini, 15 frets, nylon strings. So the Mini doesn't even have the steel strings. That is what they seem like they're implying when they say that it sounds like a real guitar. It's got nylon, just like a ukulele. 15 frets. The scale length, this is what's important here, 15.6 inches. This is the length of the playable part of the strings. Total length is 22.2 inches. So that scale length, again, that's what I'm focusing on here, 15.6 inches. If I get my Luna concert size ukulele, and I start this measuring tape at the nut and go down to the bridge, it is right at about 15 inches. So not exact, but very, very close. The Loog Mini said that it had 15 frets. If we look at this Luna Concert, this is the 15th fret, so this one goes up to 20. Different brands and different models are going to have slightly different fret counts, but I just wanted to show you that you're not getting fewer frets with a concert ukulele over a Loog Mini. Now looking at the Loog Pro, which again is $130 over the $90 of the Loog Mini, so a $40 increase. The scale is now up to 20.4 inches. We've got a couple more frets. Steel strings, so that seems to be a big selling point of theirs. The length is up to 29 inches over 22, so a bit longer, but again, this scale is what I'm going to focus on, 20.4 inches. So again, if I take my baritone ukulele, start the measuring tape at the nut, and go to the bridge, it is right at 20 inches. So again, not exact, but very, very close in terms of this scale length. The Loog Pro says it has 18 frets. This baritone ukulele has 18, 19, 20 frets. Again, there's going to be some variation, but just wanted to show you're not getting less with this option. So by now, I hope I've demonstrated my point that while the claims that Loog makes may not be 100% lies, they are certainly misleading. There are lots of different types of guitars. There are lots of different types of ukuleles. So to say that any given Loog is going to be more similar to any given guitar than any given ukulele would be, I believe to be very, very misleading. And now let's get into why I believe they're misleading people, and it's so that they can sell more of their own stuff at way too high of a price because they're targeting people that do not understand music equipment and do not frequent music websites or stores. So we've got an option here for this Loog gig bag to go with your guitar, $40. If I go back to Musician's Friend and search gig bags, sort low to high, we've got a soprano ukulele gig bag for $15. A classical guitar, that's this big thing here, is $20. Electric guitar, $24. Concert ukulele, $25. Tenor ukulele, which is a little bit bigger, $30. Now, I'm not seeing any gig bags specifically for baritone ukuleles on this website, but you can get a case. It's a soft case, but it's still a case for $50, which is only $10 more than their gig bag. But you could absolutely use a gig bag for a larger instrument like a guitar for your baritone ukulele, and those are starting at half the price of what Loog is charging for their gig bags. The next accessory they have listed is their strap for $20. You can just see by looking at this, there is nothing special about this strap. It's a very simple, cheap strap. If we go back to Musician's Friend, we've got a ukulele strap for $4, a general strap for $4. This looks to be very similar to what they're selling for $20. Now, I don't know this brand, but Dunlop is a well-recognized brand, and their straps start at less than $6. And if you're really trying to save, I use a shoelace for my ukulele straps, and I've got those laying around for free. Next, we've got the option of either a stand to go on the floor or a wall hanger, both $20. What do you think we're going to find on Musician's Friend? Here we've got wall hangers starting at $6. We've got an A-frame stand starting at $12. That might not be the best for a small ukulele, but then we've got these stands here starting at $14. Again, compared to Loog's $20. Now, me personally, if you look back here, I just use these hardware hooks that you can get for a couple bucks in the hardware section. And I just build my own racks out of 2x4s. That's what I use. I do have some of these type of stands hanging around, but I only use those for temporary purposes. Almost everything that I have is hung up on a rack. Next accessory we're looking at are the clip-on tuners. Again, they're selling for $20. Isn't it convenient that most of their stuff is 20 or 40 bucks? Seems oddly coincidental. They're using Swift brand. I've never heard of that. That doesn't mean it's bad, but I do have quite a bit of experience with different clip-on tuners. I like the Snark ones. I've used this Kala one. Had no problems with that. This one came free with an instrument. Had no problems with that. There are minute differences between some of them. The Snark is very fast, so when I tune a lot of instruments, that's why I like it. But pretty much all of these work pretty well. So let's go see what we can find on Musician's Friend. If you're paying very close attention, you might notice that I forgot to search this beforehand. So this is a new tab. But we've got these starting at $9. That's this Fender brand. Fender's a very good brand. Again, less than half. Boss is a very good brand. $14. The Snark that I like to use, those start at $15. You can get two of them. Two of these Fender ones for less than the one that Loog is selling. It's just, do you see what I'm getting at here? We're almost done. All right, last accessory we're looking at are strings. And again, they sell you on the fact that they use normal guitar strings, yet they want to sell you their own. Now, for the smaller guitars, they sell you a pack containing 3 sets. But remember, that's only 3 strings in each set, so 9 strings total. And what do you know? They're $20. When we get to the 6-string guitars, it appears to just be 1 pack or 1 set, because it doesn't say that there's any more. 1 set for $20. How much do you think they are, Musician's Friend? Now, these first ones here are just for a single string, so we're going to go past those. Here we go. Set of strings, $4. 4, 4, 4. Classical strings, $4. $4, $4. And again, I filtered out brands that I don't know. I use D'Addario and Ernie Ball, which are strings that I use a lot, so I know that they work well. Less than $5. If we look at ukulele strings, starting at $3. That's going to vary a little bit depending on what size of ukulele you're getting and what kind of strings you want. So, strings, $5 to $6 for a set of strings. They're selling them for $20. Now remember, their packs for the smaller guitars have 3 sets of 3 strings. But even then, if you're paying $5 or $6 for strings, 3 sets is still less than $20. So here's where I'm getting at with all this, and this is why I wanted to go through everything and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Loog is targeting people that don't know much about music or instruments. They're using confusing and misleading language that's not technically lies, but certainly doesn't tell the whole story, and they are selling these accessories at a huge markup because they want you to trust them as this cute, fun, easy brand and not go looking elsewhere for the same stuff that costs much, much less. They are severely overcharging for their accessories, which leads me to believe that they are also overcharging for their instruments. If you remember, their Loog Mini was starting at $90, and the ukuleles that we looked at were starting at $30. Now they also have these bundles where you can get different bundles, and I did the math, and it seems like every accessory costs half as much if it's included in a bundle. But again, Most of them cost more than twice as much as they should anyway. So you're not actually saving money overall by using these bundles. Now let's very quickly look at their Pro 6, which is a 6-string guitar, which is exactly what they complain about on the other page. Most guitars for kids are simply cheap, scaled-down replicas of a standard guitar. That's what this is, a cheap, scaled-down replica of a standard guitar. If we go down to the specs, scale length, 22.8. If I take my Guitar-Lele, which has 6 strings, like the Pro 6, get my measuring tape right at, oh my goodness, 20 inches. So within a couple inches of the same length. Number of frets that they advertise, 18. This Guitar-Lele has 19. So how much would a Guitar-Lele run us on Musician's Friend? Well, they don't have my Luna. Okay, so it turns out they actually do have my Guitar-Lele. They just don't call it that, so it didn't show up in the search. But this is the exact one that I have for $120. But we've got a Yamaha here, and we haven't talked about Yamaha yet, but Yamaha is a very well-known instrument manufacturer. Their stuff is generally considered very good quality for the price. That's at $110. $40 less than the Loog Pro 6. Now, I do want to reference this stuff here because this is also part of their marketing. They say that they've got these flashcards and this app that helps kids learn. I haven't used those. My experience as a music teacher tells me that flashcards and apps are not going to give you the feedback that a guitar teacher is going to give you. So they might make a child more interested up front, but if they're doing something wrong, flashcards and an app is not going to be able to correct them. Maybe these are really, really great, and maybe that's where they think their value lies, but they don't sell those on their own. If they did, I would probably be willing to try them. So Luke, if you're watching this and you don't want to send me an instrument, I'd like to check these out, but I'm not going to pay for one of your instruments to get them. If you send them to me, I'll do a video on them. I don't know that these are going to be worth the huge price increase of everything that they're trying to sell you, though. But I did want to point out that that is something else that I haven't mentioned yet. So, if you've got a young child that wants to learn the guitar, but you don't want to get a full-size guitar or spend the money on a full-size guitar, what do I recommend? My nephew literally just went through this. My sister-in-law texted me several weeks ago saying that he was interested in a guitar. I knew that wasn't the best choice for him, but I didn't want to tell him what I thought. I wanted him to discover it for himself. So she brought him up to my house. I gave him several different guitars to try, and he quickly realized they are too big for him. I gave him some ukuleles to try. Now, in my head, I thought he should try the baritone ukulele. It's the largest of the ukuleles, so it looks and feels the most like a guitar. It doesn't have the different tuning like the other ukuleles do, which I don't think would be a big problem, but it's tuned like a guitar, so it sounds more like a guitar. But I didn't want to tell them what I thought was best. I wanted him to find what he liked the best. And when he played through the ukuleles, he liked the baritone the best, and his mother liked the way that sounded the best. So we all, for our own different reasons, all agreed that the baritone ukulele was probably the best option for him. Now at this point, he thinks he wants to eventually switch to guitar, and maybe he will, and that's totally fine. But I think the idea of the ukulele as a beginner instrument only for the purpose of going into guitar is not necessarily accurate. The ukulele can get difficult if you get far enough into it. And there's certainly no shame in being a ukulele player and not a guitar player. So for a lot of my price comparisons, I've been looking at Musician's Friend here. Hashtag not sponsored, but Musician's Friend. I got lots of good stuff to say about you if you want to help me out here. But I just use Musician's Friend. I've used them since I was in high school for over a decade now. I've had very few problems with them. Like I said, they're the same company as Guitar Center. And I feel like they're kind of the go-to company for a slightly more casual music enthusiast. Schools might prefer a little bit higher quality companies that specifically cater towards schools, but we're not talking about schools here. But let's look very quickly at Amazon. If we're taking my advice, and we want a baritone ukulele. Let's see what we can get for our money on Amazon. If you just want the bare bones instrument only, not looking to spend any extra money, this baritone ukulele by Diamond Head, the exact one that I have, that I greatly enjoy, $100. $10 more than their Loog Mini. If you like the idea of getting a bunch of the accessories that you might need, we've got this Kala bundle. Now again, I don't have a ton of experience with Kala, and I haven't used this one in particular, but I do own a Kala and Makala. Makala is a sub-brand of Kala. It's a more economic brand. Is very highly recommended among other music teachers. So I can't personally speak to this, but I feel like it's a solid suggestion. This comes with a gig bag, a strap, a clip-on tuner, an extra set of strings, a cleaning cloth, which is nothing, and a CD, which will probably be ignored. But gig bag, strap, tuner, and extra strings, all for $130. $125, excuse me. If you're looking for a quality starter instrument for a younger child that is interested in the guitar, this seems like a good, solid option. If your child is very small and you think something like the Loog Mini rather than the Loog Pro would be a better option, they have this same bundle with the concert size, which I didn't feature a lot in this video, but it's the same size, roughly the same size as their Loog Mini. Again, we've got the gig bag, we've got the strap, we've got the tuner, we've got the extra strings. I'm not sure what Fender Play is. Let's see if I can find out. Okay, so this is interesting. I'm not sure if this is what the Fender Play is, but this says that this bundle includes 2 months of live lessons. Now, I've never used anything like that. I don't know how good that's going to be, but if there's actually a live person there, it's probably going to be more helpful than flashcards and an app. I don't see any other mention of the Fender Play down here, so I think that's probably what that is. Not 100% though. But I did also want to point out that the strings that come with this are Aquila strings, which are the favorite brand of ukulele strings that I have personally tried. The ukuleles that I have at my school, I have put Aquila strings on half of them. I've got them split half and half by color, so I've put them all on half of them. I have bought Aquila strings to replace the strings on my soprano ukulele, and I have bought Aquila strings to replace the strings on my tenor ukulele. So I like Aquila a lot. That's what comes with this one. So that's just another thing I wanted to mention. So just looking at the details for the baritone one, which did not have that Fender Play icon, and it does not mention the lessons here. So those things seem to be related, if not exactly the same thing. But it still comes with the Aquila strings. So the baritone option, larger instrument, closer to guitar, without the lessons, $125. The concert version, smaller, closer to the Mini rather than the Pro, isn't tuned exactly like a guitar, but tuned to the same relationship as the strings of a guitar. It includes the lessons, 2 months of lessons, $100. Now I want to be clear again that my comments in this video are specifically about the marketing from the company. I have no experience with Loog products. I don't know if they're good or not. I don't know what kind of quality they are. I've never used one. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy Loog, and if you already have, I'm not saying you should regret it. All I'm saying is that the way that they're selling them is misleading, and I think that they know that. And while I appreciate companies that try to foster interest in music for younger children, this is not the way that they should be doing it, in my opinion. Loog, either you know that what you're saying is misleading and inaccurate and you're doing it anyway, or you're so ignorant that you don't know that and you should educate yourself. I also haven't addressed the electric guitar options that they have because I don't know what kind of pickup system they have, if they have any preamps or not, so I didn't really want to go down that rabbit hole. But if the electric side of it is something that you're interested in, you also have a couple options outside of Loog. Many of the ukuleles from these other brands have the option to get them with or without a preamp. This is my Luna Concert. It has a preamp and an output, so you can plug it in just like an electric instrument. If you end up buying an instrument, or you already have bought an instrument that doesn't have a pickup built in, you can get what's called a contact pickup. Different companies call these different things. I've seen them called contact pickups, and they have adhesives that you can just stick on, and it will pick up the vibrations just like a pickup and send it out to your amp. Now, I don't like to stick mine on any one instrument. I use these reusable adhesive circles, and it works just fine. It's not going to give you the most amazing sound, and there's no controls here, but if your sound system has equalizer settings and things like that, then you can manipulate the sound from there. I searched on Musician's Friend to try to find a contact pickup, but there was nothing listed under that name, so they might call them something else. But here on Amazon, you can see that you can get them for under $10. They've also got this style, which will clamp on rather than stick on. That might not be the best for ukuleles or other string instruments. I think it's better for wind instruments to clip on the bell. But I've never tried it with a string instrument, so it might work fine, but I would go for one of these kind myself. So I think after all that, I'm finally at a stopping point. Thank you for watching this. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, liking this video will help it reach more people so that more people can be more informed when they make their purchase decisions. And that's what I'm going for here. I'm not telling anybody what to buy or what not to buy. I'm just trying to give people information that this company seems to not want them to have. So if you want to help this spread, liking the video will help you do that. If you have questions, you can comment them below and I will do my best to answer them. And if you want more stuff like this, where I compare different types of products and I give my input based on my experience, then you can subscribe to the channel. Let me know what kind of stuff you want to see and I will get it out to you. Thank you for watching this, and I hope your purchases will be more informed.